Hey, happy late August. It's Bryan and Ryan. I'm Brian Houston. That's Ryan Peterson. I'm officially the OG now. I turned 64 over the weekend, so I'm crankier than normal because I keep watching things happening to my college football game that I love so much, and I don't know what it all means right now. First of all, Ryan, how are you?
I'm great, but yeah, some weird things going on in college football, that's for sure. I'm scratching my head today a little bit.
Well, yeah, I am too, because I don't know how much this means, but the ACC we've known it's been coming down the pike. The ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, the alliance became official today. The three conferences coming together on a collaborative approach. This is a quote: a collaborative approach surrounding the future evolution of college athletics and scheduling. The three leagues emphasized common values and unanimous support impacting key topics affecting college athletes and schools in all sports. And this is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN that says sources say the Pac-12 has been the most aggressive of the three leagues in forming and encouraging the alliance. There's a news flash: just the fact that the Pac-12 is the leader in anything in college football or sports these days. So I don't know if this is more about just governing the sport than it is about actually putting something together that we're talking about TV rights. I mean, because we know the NCAA is toothless at this point. And I'm guessing that this is where this is going more so than even the scheduling thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I took it more as like, does this mean they're like phasing out the NCAA?
Oh, they're dead. They're phased.
But this is like an even bigger step. Like, we're going to work on governing, but I don't understand why it's the three of them. And then they say all these things like praising the Big 12, and it's like the Big 12 is so important that we elected not to include them in this alliance. Kind of bizarre. The funny thing about this alliance, and why I'm like, I don't even know what to make of it. I had to spit out my drink when I read the quote, and I can't remember which. I wish I had it in front of me, which conference commissioner said it. But there's no contract there. There's nothing written in stone. It's a handshake agreement. And he had said, and one of the commissioners had said, the day that we have to sign a contract, instead of keeping our word, we have lost our way. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what fairy tale land are you living in that you think that someone is going to keep their word just because they shook your hand? And I don't see how three commissioners who all are going to need to be worried about their own league are going to be truly worried about the betterment of everybody. I just think that's silly to think that they're going to act in the best interest of everybody.
Yeah, and the thing I want to know is, I'm assuming these are college presidents as opposed to the athletic directors who are getting together on all this. And, this is kind of a response to the Southeastern Conference adding Texas and Oklahoma to their conference in a few years. I'm like you. I mean, honestly, if Ohio State sees a way to make 50 million more dollars,
Yeah, like,
they'll break away from this alliance in a heartbeat.
yeah, you really think they're going to sit there and go, well, we shook their hand. Like, we can't do this. We shook their hand.
Right.
Like, yeah, that is not going to stop them.
Now, and by the way, folks, if you're watching, Ryan is frozen, but he's in a nice smiling position. So
That's good.
he doesn't look like a complete moron in this case, like if he's had a finger up his nose or something. So this is a good thing. No, the scheduling thing, I think everybody needs to be taking a good hard look at their non-conference schedule anyway.
Yeah.
And there have been, I know that the big, who is it? I know the Big Ten has really tried hard to encourage their schools to schedule as few FCS games as possible, if not completely eliminate them. Nick Saban's idea was, rather than just quit scheduling the FCS schools so you can give them a big payday, just give them money and don't play them.
Yeah.
Subsidize them. Because God knows these schools have enough money to do that. So put some money in a pot someplace and then let FCS schools divvy it up. I mean, what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, that could be something. I don't know. Without, again, we're back to, there's no leader. There's not one person that's leading this whole thing. So I'm just kind of like, what does any of this mean? I mean, you have a bunch of guys shaking hands and acting like, well, we can trust each other. You mentioned the presidents and of the schools and the athletic directors. You're talking 41 universities. You're telling me that they're all going to be on the same page? I don't think so. One of the other big things I was reading this afternoon, Brian, was so the Pac-12 has said that they will decide by the end of this week on expansion. There is still the possibility that they will expand. And I saw earlier, and look, this is more just for talking points for us. Do I think there's really any meat to this? Not really, but it is interesting. So Dave Wanstead, longtime NFL and Pitt coach, he was on the radio today in Chicago, and he was talking about, he was at the Fox meetings as they were getting prepared. And I wouldn't have brought it up if he hadn't have said that he heard this at the Fox meeting. So somebody, they're hearing this from somebody, but he had heard that possible expansion. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is what he said: Oklahoma State and Kansas State to the Pac-12, West Virginia to the ACC, KU and Iowa State to the Big Ten. Or at least those were the ones that they were talking about. Now, you notice the 3 Texas schools are left out there. And I saw people were responding to this story and saying, well, how would Texas Tech not get in over Kansas State? But people were saying, yeah, but the 3 Texas schools, they were trying to like all do the same thing together. But look, I don't know if this would happen. But from what I've been reading, the reality is the remaining 8 Big 12 schools want to find a lifeboat elsewhere. The worst case scenario is trying to keep the Big 12 and adding a couple lesser schools. So look, I don't know how much is really to this story, but definitely interesting because the 3 schools that were left out of this expansion were the 3 Texas schools, which I don't know what would happen to them at that point. The American, I don't know. And again, don't know that this is true, but definitely, I mean, they were talking about it at the Fox meetings.
Well, it's interesting too, and the thing that I do find interesting is that means you're leaving out the defending national champion in men's basketball and also a multiple women's basketball champion.
Right.
And then Texas Tech was in the finals just a couple of years ago. And then all 3 of those programs have been good off and on. So I don't know. It's not looking real good, though, for the Texas schools, in particular for the Big 8, whatever's left of the Big 12. It's not looking good. They're not coming at anything from a position of strength or bargaining power. And I really find it funny that the Pac-12 is flexing its muscles right now because they can't even get in the playoff 3 out of every 4 years. So I do find it all kind of humorous. So anyway, bottom line is we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. All we know right now is that COVID is striking up again, and we are already seeing, I've already seen it this week, high school games in Texas getting canceled. Hey, you're back. All right. High school games getting canceled. We see college players, pro players, coaches, all coming down with COVID or testing positive. It hit the Cowboys over the weekend with their preseason game with Houston. Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator, tested positive and it couldn't be at the game. Now today, several players, including CeeDee Lamb, are out because of COVID. Cam Newton wasn't allowed to come to the facility for New England because he apparently tested off-site or something like that and broke a protocol. But we're getting real close to the start of the season now. And so if these guys start testing positive as late as this weekend, they could be missing the opener. So this thing's a long way from over, it looks like.
Right. And then I think that fear is why Jerry Jones had released his statement today. He had said, Everyone has a right to make their own decisions regarding their health and their body. I believe in that completely until your decision as to yourself impacts negatively many others. Then the common good takes over. And I'm arm waving here, but that has everything to do with the way I look at our team, the Cowboys, or the way I look at our society. We have to check I at the door and go forward with we. Your Dallas Cowboys are doing that. And I think, Jerry knows, like, when we went into camp, they didn't have a high vaccination rate. And like you said, Bryan, you start getting, the season's almost here. You start losing players like CeeDee Lamb. I think we were under the impression Dak Prescott hadn't been vaccinated. And I know that's their private, that's private to them, but you're telling me it's going to be cool losing Dak for a week in a huge game. I just don't know how this is going to go. It could end up being the teams that are vaccinated, it's going to be a huge advantage because they're not going to lose a key quarterback or wide receiver or player in a big point in the season. And the thing is, the way COVID works, you have no idea. It could show up at any time. So, yeah.
And we've already seen, we've got the evidence now that even if you're vaccinated, you could still test positive. You may be asymptomatic. You may just get a light cold. I had a doctor's appointment last week, and I talked to my physician about it, and he said his feeling was that if you got the vaccination and you're reasonably healthy, okay, that you're looking at, if you do test positive for COVID, you're looking at 3 to 5 days of basically what is the equivalent of a bad cold. Now, obviously, if your health is compromised, and that changes things considerably. If you're extremely overweight, if you have heart conditions, high blood pressure, all those things play into it. So yes, there's absolutely no guarantee that you're not going to get COVID, but the severity of it for the majority of people who get the shot is lessened according to the numbers. Those are the facts. Also, talking here we're in Tyler, Texas. He told me that over 90% of the people that are crammed into our hospitals right now are unvaccinated people. Okay, so whether you believe in the vaccine or not, the bottom line is the NFL has applied some pretty strong pressure to see that the majority of the players and the coaches get vaccinated. All of the Power 5 conferences have already put out the warning that if you can't play, you're not making the game up. It's forfeited. You lose.
Well, and also the thing you're seeing today, so the FDA finally approved the Pfizer vaccine. So like it has been approved. And now universities, there's been multiple universities. Ohio State, I believe, was one of them. No one can go. Faculty, students, no one can go to school this year now unless they have the vaccine. They're making it mandatory. And then in the NFL, even talking the competitive advantage, because I believe I had read with the NFL, as long as you're vaccinated, if you're not showing any symptoms, they can't keep you from playing. So that is, that's a huge competitive advantage. And why, competitively, you'd want your teammates to be vaccinated because they can't keep you out, from what I read, if you don't have any symptoms, and they're not testing you as frequently either if you've been vaccinated.
I'm surprised by that only because of the level of contagiousness of the virus now.
And I'll have to go back and double check, but I was pretty sure that's what I had saw earlier because I was surprised by it. But that was one of the advantages to being vaccinated.
The three that watch this thing, they're coming to us from
they're coming anyway,
right?
They want accurate information.
Here's the fun. Let me just throw the humor into this real quickly, okay? So all these people who have said that they did not want to take the vaccine did so because they don't trust the government. And so now the FDA says Pfizer's approved. Excuse me, folks, the FDA is the government. Do you not realize this? So you didn't trust them, but now they say it's okay. The FDA says it's approved, so now it's okay because the government said, my head's going to blow up. Can't take it anymore.
I do think, and I could be wrong, but I do think we're going to see in the next couple of weeks, we have the last preseason game this week, and then there's a week off before the season starts after Labor Day. I think you're going to see a lot of guys starting to get vaccinated, because when guys see what's happening with Cam Newton, I mean, you're talking about losing a starting quarterback. I mean, because the thing is, you're letting your team down at that point. And the vaccination thing has become really political, but at the end of the day, teammates in a locker room, and they're fighting together and try one common goal, and you're going to start feeling that pressure. It's different than, I think it's way different than even us living our normal lives.
Well,
we're not accountable to a team that we're in the locker room together and all these things. So I think it's very possible you're going to see a bunch of guys trying to get it before the season starts.
that brotherhood thing means a whole lot till you lose a game check.
Right, exactly.
Don't mess with my money is the phrase I hear a lot.
Yeah, because then you're messing with my family.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all that brotherhood stuff goes out the window. Real quickly, this just came down. I don't have the whole list, but the Hall of Fame finalists for 2022, two of them, and one of them was kind of a surprise. Dick Vermeil is one of the finalists for the Hall of Fame.
He immediately cried when he found out.
He was going to cry either way. But he won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He turned them into the greatest show on turf. So, and then obviously had a great career with the Eagles before the meltdown, and was a great football coach, and was a terrific coach at UCLA, by the way. Cliff Branch, the deep threat for the then Oakland Raiders.
Right.
He was going for the deep balls thrown by Darryl LaMonica, Ken Stabler, Jim Plunkett, Mark Wilson. The guy played forever, caught 501 passes over 14 seasons, made 4 Pro Bowls, and won 3 Super Bowls. So he was on the 2 teams that Plunkett was the quarterback on, as well as playing with Kenny Stabler and all. But I was just surprised. That's not a name I've heard come up a lot when we're talking about Hall of Fame wide receivers.
No, and I was also surprised because last year's candidate, and these guys are going to get in. I don't think we've ever seen, because this is different than the 5 that they will vote in for next year's class. These guys are basically, they throw them into the hat and then they're going to get approved. It's basically yay or nay. But Drew Pearson just got in along another wide receiver that waited a long time. So I was a little surprised that they were putting in another receiver. I don't know. How would you compare him to Pearson? Do you think
Drew Pearson was an all-decade receiver. He was Roger Staubach's go-to guy. Okay. He made all these years that the Cowboys became America's team. He made so many clutch catches, as opposed to Cliff Branch, who was the other receiver. He was the deep threat to Fred Biletnikoff, who was the guy that was the primary receiver almost all the time. So,
so that makes me question why, how he's getting nominated here. Because there were some very deserving guys on that initial list. So look, the Hall of Fame, I never understand half of the names. And I personally think there are several coaches more deserving than Dick Vermeil for Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that's not to say that he shouldn't be in, but I think there are other coaches that should be in before him.
Now, I don't have a great problem with Vermeil. I'm with you, though. I mean, you can put a lot of coaches in. I do agree with Drew Pearson, though. One of the people that needs to get into the Hall of Fame is Clint Murchison, the guy that owned the Cowboys, because he was literally the person who put that, he was willing to take an expansion team in the city of Dallas, Texas, and he put 3 guys together in Tex Schramm, Tom Landry, and Gil Brandt. And then basically that's the last time you ever saw him, and he let those guys build that team. At 6 years, Landry went through heartbreak and losing seasons and barely getting by. And at a point where everybody thought he was going to get fired, then Murchison was the one that gave him a 10-year contract and said, he is my coach. He's not going anywhere. So, and think about that in this day and age, where if you don't win tomorrow, you're out. So I think I definitely, if you're going to put people, Robert Kraft's going to get in at some point. That the families that that have owned the Steelers, the Maras from the Giants, the Rooneys from the Steelers. I mean, if Al Davis is in there, Clint Murkison's got to be in there if we're talking about ownership.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Last thing I want to touch on today,
okay.
Watching some preseason football, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I normally wouldn't want to talk about the Jaguars because they're terrible, but Urban Meyer, it was this big star-studded hire. You and I were both like, well, how long is it going to be before he doesn't like losing and he's going to want to retire or, come up with a reason. So last night, this is Tuesday. So last night on Monday Night Football, they were playing the Saints and the Saints beat them easily. But one of the things in the draft, they drafted Trevor Lawrence at 1, but they had a second first-round pick. They may have the worst offensive line in the NFL, at least the worst pass protecting line in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence is going to get eaten alive this season. They took a luxury pick and drafted Etienne, the running back from Clemson, who now looks like is out for the season.
He is out. He's done for the year.
A Liz Frank injury last night, but they didn't need a running back. They had an undrafted guy that was great in Robinson that they could have had, that they already had as a starting running back that wasn't making much money. And, it's just funny to me because he wanted all these splashy picks and their offensive line is terrible. Trevor Lawrence is I'll be surprised if he gets through the season without getting injured. Their defense isn't good. They are going to lose a ton of games this year. And watching him on TV last night, I kept looking at his face wondering, is he thinking, what have I done here? We're not even through the preseason. And is he already thinking, what have I done?
Listen, I will never believe that Urban Meyer is in anything for the long haul. When this team was not performing up to par his last year at Ohio State, that's when he starts grabbing his head and all of a sudden his health is a problem again. And then if things turn around and things are going well, then suddenly he feels great again. I don't trust Urban Meyer. He's a great coach, but everywhere he's been, he's left a lot of shadiness behind. Okay. I don't know that you can do that so much in the NFL, but I could absolutely see him not being able to handle the losing. And this is not going to be a 1-year rebuild. This is going to be a multi-year rebuild, and he needs to be in for the long haul. He's got his franchise quarterback. I did find it interesting, though, that the broadcast team last night said that he reached out to Joe Burrow, who started out at Ohio State with Urban, and Urban in his infinite wisdom decided that Dwayne Haskins was a better quarterback, that he couldn't win a national championship with. LSU gets him, and Burrow wins a national championship and is the first-round draft pick overall. Just saying. But he reaches out to Joe Burrow to ask him, what do I need to do to help my quarterback? He says, you need to have a running game. You need to get the ball out of his hands fast. And so I'm thinking, okay, Urban Meyer, you've been coaching for 30 years. You ought to know that already,
And watch, if you just would have watched Joe Burrow's rookie year, it was poor offensive line play that gets him hurt and knocked out for the season. It's going to be the same thing with Lawrence. And yeah, they're going to be lucky to win. I truly think they're going to be lucky to win a couple games.
And can I just tell you, I don't think Lawrence is as pro ready as Joe Burrow was coming out.
I don't either. And I wasn't really impressed with Lawrence. In fact, his last year at Clemson, I feel like, Clemson doesn't really play anybody a lot through the ACC. And I just don't think he's ready either. That's not to say he's not going to be a great NFL quarterback eventually, but my fear for him is getting beat down. Because like you said, this isn't going to be like a 1-year turnaround. And this could be multiple seasons of losing big. Will mentally he be able to be strong enough to go through it? Because this isn't anything like he saw at Clemson.
See, and the difference between, and listen, he is a physical specimen, okay? He's an Adonis in every form of the word. But Clemson did not run a pro-style offense. He wasn't going to the line of scrimmage and checking into the right place he wasn't doing a lot of getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He was in the run game a lot. Joe Burrow was in an offense where he changed the plays. He had freedom to change the plays all the time. And he was constantly checking teams and, that maybe had a pass call, checking them into a run that got him a first down. He was getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He was throwing it all over the field. And and he was having to make quick decisions. And I never did see that with Trevor Lawrence. That's not to say that Lawrence isn't going to be that guy someday, but I just don't believe he's as pro ready as Joe Burrow was, which is why Joe Burrow amazed people when the first day that he hit the field in Cincinnati. They were already talking about how much command he had of the offense. It was just a matter of what you put around him. They put trash around him. He got hurt, blew his knee out. So I just think that it's going to be a longer process, and you're going to need a guy that is going to be committed to sticking around for 10 years to get this thing going. And I don't believe Urban Meyer is that guy. He never has been.
Yeah, I think if he lasts longer than 1 year, if they lose at the rate I think they're going to, I'd be shocked if he's back in year two.
What always blows my mind about Urban Meyer is he comes off great. Okay, when he was on Fox on the college football show, this guy comes off. He's terrific on television, and he talks a great game. But every time he's faced adversity, like for instance, when his Tim Tebow led Florida Gators lost to Alabama in the SEC championship in Tebow's senior year, his health was bad. That caused he was having all these migraines. He had to quit the game. He goes to Ohio State. He has a team that underperforms. His health's bad. I've got to leave the game. It's just over and over again. And then you see again the scandals that he leaves behind, and hiring sketchy weight guys and things like that. I think that Jacksonville got a guy that may sell some tickets, but if they think he's going to be there for the long haul to really rebuild this into a championship team, I think they got another thing coming. That's just my opinion. And I know there'll be a lot of Ohio State people that are going to crush me if they ever happen to trip over this and see it. But I don't think he's all that.
They would have been better off, taking the first pick with Lawrence and then drafting nothing but offensive linemen the rest of the draft. They had a good running back. They had good receivers, in my opinion, good enough to win in the NFL. It's not about, you can't just get these 5-star studs at these skill positions and that's how you win. That's not going to work in the NFL. And it's going to be a rough year. I'll eat crow if they don't, but they don't look, that offensive line is not going to be able to protect Lawrence.
I completely agree with you. I was not impressed with Lawrence last night. Saints are good though, so you got to give them that. The Saints defense,
but that's preseason. Yes. Like defenses aren't even doing what they're going to be doing. Like the blitzes and disguising things, they haven't seen nothing yet. So
and that's one thing. As we wrap it up, that's one thing. Talking about the Cowboys, they're 0-3, and we know nothing about whether they're going to be any good. The only thing that I can tell you is that I think Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox are beasts. And if it was me and I was putting that defense together, I would start those two over Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch.
Well, and it already looks like the defense is planning everything around Parsons anyways. I think that they're going to be doing everything based on where he's going to be on the field.
They should.
So, that should be, I guess, exciting for Cowboy fans, what the defense can be. Offensively, we have absolutely nothing we can take of it. These games have been completely pointless. You're just going to have to see if they're ready against Tampa Bay on Thursday night.
And the thing about it that concerns me the most is the fact that Dak has not played a meaningful game since he broke his ankle. And he's not going to play at all in the preseason. So we literally are not going to see that offense as one on the field, one snap going into Tampa Bay to play the defending Super Bowl champions. This is not going to end well in game.
And we're seeing this trend where this is happening, but I just don't like it. Look, Patrick Mahomes played well into the second quarter, his game the other night, and look, did he need to play that much? Probably not, but you know, I think guys that are perfectionists and elite at their craft, like they want to get some reps so that they're not just going in cold that first week. And look, you can get hurt any play,
That's right.
anytime. So yeah, I just don't like, I get you're paying these guys so much money, you have these freak injuries, but to not, especially coming back from injury, at least get him some confidence, play him one series against a team, you know, like the Rams to me would have been a great one. The teams like the Rams that don't play any starters. So let him go in, have some success against backups for a series and get out. But yeah, we'll just have to see if he's ready against Tampa.
Well, we've seen you frozen and unfrozen, and quite honestly, I like you frozen better. But that's just, I like the movie too, so it shows you where I'm coming from. Ryan, always good to talk to you. Have a great week. We got football, college football this coming weekend. No games that you really care about, but we'll be able to talk about real life football and some high school football next week. So I'm ready, buddy.
All right, man.
Hey, good to talk to you. That's Ryan Peterson. I'm Brian Houston. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like it, leave comments, share. And for the 2 or 3 of you out there that watch every week, thanks very much. We will see you next week.